The sky above Earth was not normal that day. It was filled with shapes too huge to comprehend. Glowing like molten stars, ships from the Galactic Empire appeared without warning, silent but terrifying, blocking the sun and casting long shadows over cities, forests, and oceans. People stopped in the streets. Cars stalled. Dogs barked, birds flew in panic, and the world held its breath. No one had expected the Empire to come so soon, so fast, so overwhelming. In New York, Mara stood at the edge of her rooftop, her hair whipping in the wind as she stared at the massive ships. They hovered like predators over the planet, silent and deadly. Her heart pounded, her palms sweaty, yet she could not look away. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her backpack, not because she carried anything important, but because she was human. She was alive, and she felt fear, yes, but also something else. A stubborn, unyielding spark deep inside her chest. The first voice came through every device at once. It was not a human voice. It was deep, resonant, metallic, and almost alive. Earth, it said, kneel. Surrender your world, your people, and your weapons. Obey or face total annihilation. The voice echoed across oceans, mountains, and cities. It was calm, terrifyingly calm. It was as if the Empire expected no argument. Governments scrambled. In a glass building downtown, world leaders gathered in emergency sessions. The United Nations, the Security Council, generals, scientists, and diplomats spoke over one another. "We must comply," one said. "We cannot defeat them," another shouted. A woman scientist pleaded, "Give us time. We can fight back, we can try." But every eye in the room carried the same thought. The Empire had faced hundreds of civilizations and none had survived. Still, not everyone was ready to bow. Mara's father, a general in the Earth Defense Force, stood silently at the edge of a table, staring at the holographic projection of alien ships. His hands were clenched, veins standing out on his arms. "They do not understand us," he said quietly. "They see humans as weak, as small. They do not know what fire lives inside us. They do not know that some of us will burn everything rather than kneel." On the streets, people watched the broadcasts. Families held each other close. Children asked questions adults could not answer. "Will they hurt us?" one little boy whispered, hiding behind his mother's legs. His mother kissed his hair and whispered, "We will survive. Somehow." Yet in her heart she felt the same fear that gripped every human. This was not a war of armies. This was a war against hope itself. Mara took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving the ships above. She had trained for flight, for combat, for the impossible, but nothing could prepare her for this. 1,000 questions raced through her mind. Could humanity fight? Could humans survive against an empire that spanned galaxies? Could they even protect their homes, their families, their planet? The first explosions came hours later, though the waiting had felt like eternity. Satellites fell from orbit, crashing into oceans. Cities flickered with strange energy pulses. Lights went out. Communications cut in and out. Mara could feel the trembling of the ground beneath her feet. People screamed. Chaos erupted. But in the midst of terror, something remarkable happened. Across the world, humans did not kneel. They ran, they hid, yes, but they also organized. They helped one another escape, guided each other through smoke and fire, and whispered words of courage even to strangers. Mara's spark grew brighter. The aliens demanded fear, submission, but humans were capable of defiance. Somewhere inside her, a thought crystallized, sharp and impossible to ignore. We will not kneel. Not today. Not ever. As night fell, alien lights filled the sky. Fires burned in cities below. Humanity trembled, but they also watched, eyes wide, hearts pounding. And Mara, standing alone on the rooftop, looked at the horizon where alien ships blocked the stars, and she whispered to herself, almost as if daring the Empire to hear her, "We are human, and we will not bow." The wind tore at her jacket. The distant sounds of chaos echoed in the city streets, and above the Empire waited, confident, patient, certain that this planet would surrender. They did not yet understand that fear was not the only language humans spoke. There was another language, stronger, more dangerous, and entirely unpredictable, the language of courage, defiance, and fire, and Mara felt it rising, deep in her chest. The night was thick with smoke and fear, but the world refused to sleep. Across continents, humans gathered in homes, shelters, and streets staring at the sky. The alien ships hung there like silent gods, glowing with colors no human eye had ever seen. The voice of the Galactic Empire repeated its demand: kneel, or be destroyed. It was calm, unyielding, unshakable. In the war room beneath the capital, leaders argued as the hours ticked by. Some, trembling, suggested surrender. "We must comply," one minister whispered. "It is the only way to save billions." Others shook their heads. They spoke of honor, freedom, and the human spirit. They spoke of what it meant to be alive, to fight for something more than mere survival. Mara's father, the general, stood at the center, his eyes scanning the room, his voice quiet but firm. "They think we are weak," he said, pacing slowly. "They think fear will bend us. But humans are fire. We fight not because we are strong, but because we will not give up. We will protect our families, our friends, our planet, no matter the cost." Mara listened to him on the comm from her small fighter base on the edge of the city. Her hands were trembling, but not from fear. She was scared, yes, but more than that, she was alive, and she felt something that few humans ever felt. The certainty that the right choice was not the easy one. The easy choice was to kneel. The right choice was to fight. Across the world, the human population stirred. Soldiers, civilians, engineers, and children alike watched the skies and whispered the same word in unison, across oceans, deserts, and forests. No. It was simple. It was raw. It was enough. Enough to remind the Empire that Earth's people would not submit quietly. Mara walked through the streets to her squadron, her boots clicking on broken asphalt. Fires from earlier skirmishes lit the horizon, painting the smoke red and gold. Civilians ran in panic, but soldiers directed them toward safety. Mara saw a mother lift her child over rubble, a man carry his wounded brother, and strangers helping one another through the chaos. Humans did not wait for orders, they acted. They fought with their hearts first, their weapons second. At the command center, scientists raced to ready the Earth's defenses. Satellites were repositioned. Drones were armed. Every weapon, every tool, every piece of technology was mobilized. They did not have the might of the Empire, but humans had ingenuity, unpredictability, and courage. And they had each other. Mara climbed into her fighter, heart pounding as the engines hummed beneath her. She checked her instruments, ran through protocols, and then looked up. The alien ships were closer now, massive silhouettes against the stars. They assumed humans were simple, fragile, and easy to break. They did not yet understand defiance. Her father's voice came over the comm again. "Remember, Mara," he said, "courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing up when fear wants you to fall. Protect your people. Protect your world. And do not kneel." Mara felt a lump in her throat. The sky was full of enemies, yes, but it was also full of humanity. People who refused to bow. People who, despite exhaustion, grief, and terror, chose to rise. She thought of her friends, her family, the millions of lives depending on her decisions. This was not just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the soul of Earth itself. Minutes stretched like hours. The aliens' communication repeated, demanding surrender. Mara's squadron lined up in formation, engines roaring. Around them, civilians shouted encouragement, waved flags, or simply held hands. The defiance was overwhelming. It was chaos, it was fear, it was hope, and it was unmistakably human. The decision had been made. Earth would not bow. Humans would not surrender. They would fight not because victory was certain, but because living as slaves was not an option. They would fight because even in the face of annihilation, they still had hearts capable of love, courage, and fire. Mara took a deep breath, her hands steady now, gripping the controls. She looked at the sky again, at the ships that dwarfed cities, that blocked the sun, that threatened life itself, and she smiled, small but fierce. "We will not kneel," she whispered, and with that the humans of Earth made their choice, not easy, not safe, but theirs. They would stand. They would fight. They would burn if they had to. And they would show the Empire, once and for all, that humans were not creatures to command, but storms to withstand. The engines roared, the sky trembled, and the first strikes of defiance began. The sky was alive with fire. Alien ships, massive and silent, unleashed beams of energy that tore through the cities below. Explosions lit the night like new suns. The ground shook and the screams of humans echoed in every street. Mara gripped her fighter's controls tightly, her knuckles white. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the explosions. Fear was there, yes, but it was joined by something stronger. Determination. She had seen war in simulations, in drills, but this was real. Real fire, real death, real choice. And yet humans did not cower. Even as buildings fell, as fire rained down, people ran toward shelters, helped the wounded, carried children, and shielded each other. Every act of bravery, every small sacrifice felt like a strike against the Empire itself. Mara's squadron streaked across the sky, dodging alien fire. Their fighters were small, weak, fragile, but humans had learned to adapt. They were unpredictable. They were clever, and that mattered. Each maneuver Mara made, each sharp dive or sudden turn carried a message. We will not go quietly. The first human counterattack came in chaos. Mara watched as drones armed by scientists launched from hidden factories. They swarmed the alien ships, striking engines, sabotaging shields. Explosions blossomed across the sky like flowers of fire. The Empire had expected fear, silence, submission, but humans offered defiance, and it was beautiful. From the ground, soldiers fired anti-air missiles, improvised weapons, anything that could hit the ships. Civilians helped guide them, offering signals, warning of dangers, and keeping morale high. Mara could see the determination in every human face she passed. Whether through the fighter's window or on distant streets, humans had a way of finding hope even in the worst moments, and it was contagious. Then came the first victory. A massive alien ship glowing like molten metal faltered. Mara's squadron had hit its weak points, exploiting the smallest vulnerabilities. It crashed into the ocean with a deafening roar, sending a pillar of water and fire into the sky. Mara felt a thrill she had never known, fear mixed with pride. Humanity had struck back. They had survived the first wave, but the cost was clear. Cities were burning. Families were missing. Every street seemed to carry loss. Mara's squadron flew over her own city, and she saw her home in flames. Her hands shook. The fire was terrible, but she did not turn away. Every human loss was a scar, yes, but also a reason to fight harder. The Empire believed humans were fragile, weak, and fearful. They had never faced a species that could fight with such desperation, such heart, such unwillingness to bow. On the comms, her father's voice came, steady despite the chaos. "Remember, Mara, fear is natural, but do not let it control you. Protect what you can. Fight with your mind, fight with your heart, and never kneel." Mara nodded to herself even though he could not see her. She felt the fire in her chest grow. Every maneuver, every strike against the aliens was fueled by it. This was not just about survival anymore. It was about defiance. It was about proving to the galaxy, to the Empire, that humans were not just another species to conquer. Humans were storms, unpredictable, fierce, and alive. Across the planet, people responded. Cities that could not fight directly sent signals, guidance, and support. Scientists improvised weapons. Farmers created barricades. Children carried water to those fighting fires. Even in the chaos, humanity was organized, not by force but by heart. The alien voice boomed again, demanding surrender. Mara ignored it. She did not need to speak. Humanity's actions were louder than any words. Humans were burning, not just in fire but in spirit. Every explosion of defiance, every strike, every act of courage was a message written across the sky. We will not kneel. By dawn, The first wave of attacks had passed. Many humans had died. Many buildings were rubble. Yet the Empire hesitated. They had never expected this. A small species, fragile and insignificant in their eyes, had fought back with courage and strategy. They had survived, and they had struck fear. Mara landed her fighter on a broken airstrip. Her hands were shaking, her body exhausted. Around her, fellow pilots emerged, battered but alive. They did not celebrate. There was no time. There was only determination and the knowledge that the fight had just begun. And yet, in that exhaustion, there was hope. The Empire believed humans were weak. They had underestimated a species that could bleed, cry, fear, and still rise stronger. Mara looked at the horizon where the sun was rising behind alien wreckage and human smoke. She whispered almost to herself, "This is only the beginning. We will burn, we will fight, and we will survive." The fires of Earth were both terrible and beautiful that day. They were destruction, yes, but also defiance, courage, and the first proof that humans would never, ever kneel. The fires burned brighter than the sun that morning. Smoke rose like towers into the sky, and the distant hum of alien engines shook the planet. Earth's people had survived the first strike, but the cost was terrible. Cities were in ruins, millions had fled or perished, and hope felt fragile. Yet amidst the chaos, humanity made a choice that would shock the galaxy. In emergency command centers, leaders spoke in hushed, urgent tones. Scientists and generals debated a radical plan. There was no way to match the Empire's power directly. Humanity could not outgun them, could not outnumber them. But humans had something the Empire had not anticipated: the courage to risk everything. The decision was terrifying, but it was clear. If the aliens wanted to conquer Earth, they would find nothing left to take. Humans would burn their own resources rather than surrender them. Mara listened to the plan over her comms as she prepared her fighter. Factories were being evacuated and demolished. Energy stations were rigged to explode. Weapons caches were destroyed or scattered. The idea was shocking, almost unthinkable, sacrificing one's own planet to deny the enemy. Yet it was brilliant. It was desperate. It was human. From the skies, Mara could see the world changing. Cities that had stood for centuries were now skeletal shadows of themselves. Smoke and fire climbed into the clouds, painting the horizon red and gold. People ran, yes, but they ran with purpose. They carried what they could, shielded the vulnerable, and left nothing of use behind for the Empire. Every burning factory, every collapsed bridge, every scorched field was a message. You will not have our planet. You will not have us. Mara's squadron flew low over a factory district, dodging alien fire. Flames licked the sides of buildings and molten metal fell like raindrops. Civilians were guiding escape routes below. Mara saw an elderly man helping children over rubble, a soldier dragging an injured comrade toward safety, and volunteers lighting controlled fires to prevent alien salvage. Humanity's courage was visible, tangible, and terrifying to any observer. The Empire's ships hovered, watching, scanning, analyzing. They could not understand this level of defiance. Humans were supposed to submit. Humans were supposed to beg for mercy, yet every action, every human life radiated resistance. Mara felt a strange thrill as she dove her fighter past laser fire, dodging an enemy beam, and unleashed her own attack on a lightly shielded alien ship. It exploded in a shower of sparks. Small victories, yes, but victories nonetheless. On the ground, soldiers coordinated the destruction of strategic supplies. Engineers rigged fuel depots and bridges. Farmers abandoned fields and demolished irrigation systems to prevent use. Even children and elderly helped in small ways, carrying messages, distributing water, and guiding evacuees. Every human was part of the gambit. Every human had a role in a plan bigger than themselves. Mara looked at the horizon, where the Empire's fleet hovered above burning cities. The alien voice demanded surrender again. Earth, kneel or be destroyed. Mara felt a flash of anger. Kneel? Humans would not. They had already made the impossible choice. They were sacrificing their own world to deny the enemy, and in doing so, they were proving something the Empire could not destroy. the human spirit. Hours passed, and the fires grew. Smoke turned the sky orange streaked with black. Mara's fighter squadron moved in patterns to protect evacuation routes and strike enemy ships when possible. Every mission was dangerous, every move risky, but humans did not falter. They could not. The Gambit demanded everything, and they gave it willingly. As night fell, the Empire finally understood the scale of human defiance. Entire cities had been abandoned or destroyed. Resources were gone. Every attempt to seize Earth was met with chaos and fire. The aliens had expected obedience, submission, surrender, but humans had given them something else entirely. A burning, unpredictable, relentless fight. Mara landed briefly on a ridge overlooking the city. Flames rose into the sky, smoke choking the horizon, and the distant hum of alien engines echoed like thunder. Her body was exhausted, her lungs burned from smoke, and her hands trembled from adrenaline. Yet inside she felt something powerful. Pride. Humanity had chosen defiance over life, courage over safety, freedom over submission. She whispered to herself, almost in awe, "We are alive, and we will not kneel." Somewhere in the darkness, humans continued to fight. Fires burned, but they were also alight. The Gambit was costly, terrifying, and risky, but it was human. And humans, Mara realized, did not just survive, they made the impossible a weapon. The Empire had thought Earth would bow. They had underestimated humans, and they were about to learn a lesson that no alien force in the galaxy could ever forget. Mara's squadron roared into the night sky again, engines screaming, hearts burning. Earth was on fire. But the fire was not defeat, it was defiance. And it was only the beginning. The fires of Earth raged on, painting the night sky red and gold. Smoke stretched like rivers across continents, and the sound of distant explosions was constant, like the heartbeat of a planet under siege. Yet amidst the chaos, humanity did not falter. If anything, they shone brighter. Mara flew low over a city that had once been alive with laughter, commerce, and light. Now it was chaos. Buildings collapsed, streets cracked, and smoke choked the air. But she saw courage everywhere. Soldiers helped civilians over rubble, strangers shared food and water, and families protected one another with fierce determination. Every act of bravery was a small rebellion against the Empire, a proof that humans would not bend, even when death surrounded them. Her fighter dipped, avoiding a beam from an alien scout ship. The strike left a trail of sparks, and Mara felt a thrill of relief mixed with fear. She knew every action mattered. Every move, every choice could save lives or lose them. And yet she could not stop looking at the people below. Humans were not perfect, but they were brave in ways the galaxy had never seen. In a nearby district, Mara spotted a small group of children leading a lost puppy through debris. One child, no older than 8, held the puppy high over the rubble, refusing to leave it behind. A young soldier noticed and ran to guide them to safety. Mara smiled through the cockpit glass. Even the smallest acts of humanity mattered. They were proof that courage was not only in soldiers or pilots, it was in every person who refused to give in. The alien ships continued to hover, scanning and striking, but the more they attacked, the more humans resisted. Civilians became guides, engineers rigged traps, and doctors tended to the injured even under fire. Mara realized that humanity's strength was not in their weapons, it was in their hearts. Every human alive had a part to play, and together, they formed a resistance no empire could have predicted. Mara's squadron was called to protect a convoy carrying civilians away from the largest city still burning. Engines screamed as fighters dodged laser beams and counterattacked. Explosions erupted around them, and Mara's hands gripped the controls so tightly her knuckles were white. But she did not panic. Fear was natural, but humans had learned to fight alongside it, to let courage guide them when the mind screamed to run. On the ground, families formed lines, moving quickly but calmly through the smoke. Strangers held hands, shielding children and the elderly. Mara watched a father carry his daughter over rubble, while his wife helped two neighbors escape a burning building. She felt a lump in her throat. Humans had given up cities, factories, and even comfort, but they had not given up each other. Not one life would be abandoned if it could be saved. The alien voice thundered across the sky again. Surrender, or perish. Mara ignored it. Humans were already doing something far greater than surrender or compliance. They were fighting for each other, and for that reason alone they could never truly be conquered. Courage, hope, and love were more powerful than any weapon. Hours turned into days. Mara and her squadron flew sortie after sortie, escorting convoys, sabotaging enemy supply lines, and protecting civilians. The humans on the ground never stopped. Every day new acts of bravery unfolded. A teacher led children through a maze of collapsing streets. A nurse carried the wounded through fire and rubble. A young man rigged a city power plant to explode to prevent alien capture, risking his life without hesitation. These were acts that no alien could calculate, no weapon could destroy, and no strategy could anticipate. Mara felt tears in her eyes as she flew over the burning world. This was what it meant to be human. Humans were fragile, yes, and yet capable of incredible resilience. Every action, every sacrifice, every choice was a testament to the heart of humanity. She whispered to herself, almost in awe. They think we are weak, but they have no idea. Even as alien ships hovered above, humans persisted. Mara realized something vital. This was not just a battle for Earth, it was a declaration to the galaxy. Humans would not kneel. Humans would not submit. Humans would fight, protect, and survive because their hearts demanded it. And so in the middle of chaos, in the heart of fire and smoke, humanity's true power was revealed. Not in weapons, not in ships, not in technology, but in the courage, love, and defiance of every person who refused to surrender. Mara's fighter banked over another burning city. Engines screaming, eyes focused, heart full of hope. She knew one thing for certain. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were storms, wild and unstoppable, and the Empire would soon learn that no force in the galaxy could crush a heart determined to be free. The alien fleet had grown restless. Hours turned into days, and their calculations had failed. Every attack met fierce resistance. Every strike against humans seemed only to strengthen their resolve. Mara flew above the burning cities, her fighter weaving through the debris of collapsed buildings and smoke-choked skies. She could see it clearly now. Humans were not just surviving. They were adapting, evolving, becoming something the Empire had never faced. The Empire's commanders called another meeting aboard the flagship. Their voices were sharp, frustrated. This species is abnormal. They do not surrender. They do not fear. Their strategies are chaotic and effective. They adapt too quickly. Sensors and data screens blinked red. Mara's actions, along with countless others, had forced the Empire into uncertainty, a place where it had never been. On Earth, humans had begun striking back in more daring ways. Mara's squadron had led several raids targeting alien supply ships and command vessels. Every sortie brought victories, but also cost lives. Pilots fell, cities burned, but hope, fragile and stubborn, survived. Mara felt exhaustion gnaw at her muscles and focus, but she pushed forward. Fear was present, yes, but determination burned brighter. Humanity's future, fragile yet fierce, depended on every effort. Then came the most dangerous mission yet. Mara's squadron was tasked with striking the Empire's flagship directly, a feat that most said was impossible. Their weapons were small, their numbers limited, but the plan relied on something the Empire could not calculate: unpredictability. Humans could be clever, chaotic, and courageous in ways that machines and algorithms could not predict. Mara tightened her harness, her eyes scanning the massive silhouette of the flagship against the dark sky. The size alone was enough to crush hope in any normal pilot. But Mara was not normal. She was human. And humans had something the Empire could never understand: fire in their hearts. The squadron dove. Lasers streaked through the sky. Mara weaved through shields and counterattacks, dodging explosions that would have destroyed any ordinary fighter. Her mind was calm, even as her body screamed with tension. Every strike she made, every maneuver, carried the weight of countless lives below, of cities burning, of families hiding, of friends lost and still fighting. Explosions ripped through the flagship. Mara watched in awe as small strikes hit critical systems. The alien vessel shuddered, engines faltering, weapons offline. It was chaos for the Empire. The humans had turned what seemed impossible into reality. Every human action, from civilians sabotaging supply lines to pilots risking death, had contributed to this moment. On the ground, people cheered, even amidst the ruins. Fires were still everywhere. Smoke still choked the skies, but hope had returned stronger than before. Humans had proven once and for all that their courage and unity were weapons the Empire could not destroy. Mara felt a surge of pride and sorrow. Pride for her people, for their defiance, for their heart. Sorrow for those who had fallen, for cities that would never be rebuilt, for families torn apart by fire and fear. Humanity's fight had come at an unimaginable cost, but it had a purpose. It had meaning. They were not just surviving. They were sending a message to the galaxy. The Empire's voice thundered once more, demanding surrender. Mara ignored it. Surrender had never been an option. Humans had fought, sacrificed, and adapted, showing a defiance no algorithm, no weapon, no ship could counter. They had burned their own resources, outsmarted the enemy, and struck fear into the hearts of the invaders. As Mara banked her fighter away from the crippled flagship, she saw the rising sun behind the smoke. The light reflected on the wreckage, turning the burning city below into a scene of both destruction and beauty. The planet was scarred, yes, but it was alive. Humans were alive, and they were free. She whispered to herself, almost as if making a vow, "This is our world. They will never break us." Somewhere across Earth, humans continued to fight with quiet courage. Soldiers, engineers, teachers, children, parents, all played their part. Mara realized that strength was not in the size of weapons or numbers of ships. Strength was in heart, will, and unity, and humans had more of that than any empire could ever comprehend. The turning point was clear. The Empire, for all its power, had underestimated the fire within humans. They had assumed fear would be universal. They had assumed surrender inevitable. But humans were not afraid, or rather, they were afraid, and yet they chose courage anyway. Mara's fighter soared over the horizon, engines screaming, eyes full of determination. Earth was burning, but it was also alive, fierce, and undefeated. Humanity had turned despair into defiance, chaos into strategy, and fear into courage. And now the galaxy would know humans did not kneel. Humans burned, but they survived, and they would fight forever. The fires of Earth had dimmed, but their light still glowed in the smoke-filled sky. Cities lay in ruins, forests burned, oceans glimmered red from the reflection of flames. Yet for the first time in days, humans could breathe without immediate fear of death from above. The Empire had retreated, stunned by the defiance of one small blue planet. They had assumed submission, yet they found only courage, chaos, and hearts that refused to bend. Mara stood on a ridge overlooking the ruined city she once called home. Her uniform was scorched, her hands still trembling from adrenaline, her lungs still heavy with smoke. Around her, fellow pilots landed their battered fighters, exhausted but alive. Eyes met eyes without words. They did not need words. They had survived. They had fought. They had proven the impossible. Humanity could not be conquered. The world was scarred, yes. Streets were broken, buildings shattered, and families lost loved ones. But in the destruction there was beauty, the beauty of defiance, of courage, and of the human spirit. Mara looked at the horizon, where smoke mingled with the rising sun. Light broke through the darkness, golden and persistent. Humanity had endured, and in doing so, had made a promise to the galaxy. Freedom is not given. It is taken, defended, and earned, even if the price is everything. On the streets below, humans began to gather. Survivors embraced each other. Tears and laughter mixed together. Strangers helped strangers, carrying the injured, sharing food, rebuilding temporary shelters. Even in loss, humans acted with compassion. Mara realized then that the true power of humanity was not only in courage or defiance, it was in their hearts. They could be small, fragile, and mortal, yet their spirit could shake empires. She remembered the first day when the alien voice demanded that Earth kneel. Back then fear had been everywhere. But fear had not won. Humanity had faced the greatest power in the galaxy and chosen fire over submission. Every pilot who flew into danger, every civilian who carried a neighbor to safety, every scientist who rigged a trap, they had all written the legacy of Earth in blood, smoke, and courage. Mara's father approached her, eyes weary but proud. "You see it now, Mara," he said softly. "This is who we are. We are small. We are fragile, but we are human, and that is enough." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "They will never forget this," she whispered. "They will never forget that humans cannot be broken." From space, the Empire watched as their plans unraveled. Entire fleets had been damaged, key ships destroyed, and every attempt to control the planet had failed. They had underestimated humanity, as they had underestimated countless others. But none had fought like Earth. Humans were unpredictable, passionate, and brave beyond measure. The Empire had learned a lesson that no galaxy would soon forget. Some fires, no matter how small, cannot be extinguished. Mara turned her gaze back to the people around her. Survivors moved through the ruins with quiet strength. They cleaned, they rebuilt, they comforted. Their world had been scarred, but their spirit remained unbroken. In their eyes was a promise: Earth would rise again. It would heal, it would grow, and it would never bow to tyranny. As the sun rose higher, its light cut through the lingering smoke, turning the world gold. Mara breathed deeply, feeling the wind on her face. The battle was not over, not entirely. But the first victory had been won, not by power, not by numbers, not by advanced technology, but by courage, defiance, and heart. She thought of every person who had fought, every life that had been lost, every act of bravery that had saved countless others. Each one was a spark, a flame that together had become a wildfire, and that wildfire had forced the mightiest empire in the galaxy to retreat. Mara raised her fist toward the horizon, a silent salute to those who had fallen and those who had survived. "We are human," she said softly, a statement that carried through the smoke over the mountains, across the oceans. "And we will never kneel." Somewhere in the depths of space, the Empire retreated, carrying with them a memory they could never erase. Humanity had survived, humanity had fought, humanity had burned, and in that fire they had made themselves immortal in the story of the galaxy. And Mara, looking at her wounded but unbroken world, knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity's heart would endure, stronger than any weapon, brighter than any fire, and freer than any empire could ever allow. Earth had survived the impossible, and the galaxy would never forget it.